Hello chess enthusiasts and welcome back to our exciting journey through the world of chess. Today I have brought with me my favorite 6 traps in the Morra Gambit. Who doesn't like winning against or with the Sicilian fast? So let's plunge straight into the heart of the action. In order to reach the Morra Gambit, white has to play e4, black plays c5, and now white plays d4. And the most common move here is c takes d4, and in order to go into the Morra Gambit, black has to play d takes c3 here. So knight takes c3, knight c6, a very standard way of developing, and now either knight f3 or bishop c4. Let's look at bishop c4 here, but it doesn't really change anything. d6 and knight to f3, and here comes the first trap. If black plays bishop g4, you should recognize that the bishop is not defended. It's also not attacked yet, but it's also not defended. And additionally, black has no control over g5, which is very important, and only the king is guarding f7. And there's also this pin, but actually in this position it works vice versa. So actually the queen is threatening the bishop, and there's the standard sacrifice, bishop takes f7, check. Now the king has to take, knight g5 check, and as you can see, suddenly the bishop on g4 is attacked and it's check, so the king has to move. King goes to e8, queen takes g4, so white regained the pawn and the king is stuck in the center. Actually, I had this in one of my games and the game didn't last very long. Let's go to the next trap. So white plays again e4, c5, d4, c takes d4, c3, d takes c3, knight takes c3, d6, bishop c4, knight f6, and this early knight f6 in combination with d6 is already a mistake. White can go for e5, and the best black actually has is knight f2 d7, and then comes knight f3, d takes e5, knight g5, e6, and so on, with a lot of pressure for the sacrificed pawn. But what if black takes the pawn? As you can see, the queen is only guarded by the king, and there's this decoy. So bishop takes f7, and suddenly the king has to give up the defense of the queen because there's no other legal move. King takes f7, queen takes d8, white is up a queen and winning. So let's go to the next trap. So it's a very similar position, or actually the same. Knight f d7, knight f3, knight takes e5, knight takes e5. So taking on e5 again does not work because of bishop takes f7 check, king takes f7, and queen takes d8. So let's go back and see how this could be avoided. Well, here it's already late after knight takes e5 because black has already lost a piece. So if you count, there are 4 minor pieces for white and only 3 for black. Something went horribly wrong. So this is also not playable for black. Let's go to the next example. e5, e4, c5, d4, c takes d4, c3, bishop c4, knight f6, and again e5, knight f d7, knight f3, and this time white is having a little bit a harder time because black plays d takes e5 instead of knight takes e5, which we have seen in the previous example, and the queen is lost after queen takes d8. So instead, black takes knight g5, e6, queen h5, threatening mate, so g6 is rather forced, queen f3, again threatening mate, knight f6, now white castles, bishop g7, and queen rook d1, and after this move there is this trap with queen c7, because now white can just play knight to b5. Black could take the bishop here, but then it's check and the queen is lost, so this is not working. Taking the bishop is not possible. So after knight b5 comes queen to e7, knight d6 check, king f8, and now knight takes c8. So what in case of king here? Now white can decide how to win. Probably the simplest win here is this check and this discovery attack. So again, black is completely lost in this variation. Let's go to the next example. So this is again with an early knight f6, and now comes e5 again. Also, please pay attention that the queen here is defended. So d takes e5, seemingly winning a pawn, but then comes queen takes d8. And now black is in big trouble, because after knight takes d8, for example, there is knight b5, threatening check, very unpleasant, and this fork. So black would play rook b8, but then comes knight takes e5, and now white is threatening mate, because this square is covered by the knight. So usually black plays e6, white castles, and white is completely winning. He will bring out his bishop and try to win material. So what if the king took instead of the knight on d8? Then comes knight g5, threatening a check here. And bishop e6 does not work because of bishop takes e6, f takes e6, and knight f7 check. And forking again, king and rook. So this is not working. Therefore, usually king c7 is played, and then comes knight takes f7, and it's still completely winning for white. So let's go to the next trap. And for the last trap, I decided to include a way of for black to trap white. So e4, c5, d4, c takes d4, c3, takes, knight c6, knight f3, e6, bishop c4. And please pay attention to the setup, because this bears a very dangerous trap. Queen c7, white castles, knight f6. And usually what will happen here is that white very often goes for queen e2, because this is the standard way of developing. Then the bishop will go somewhere, and the f rook goes to d1, and the a rook goes to c1. So therefore the queen must be on e2. But here it doesn't work because of knight g4, and this position is not losing yet. But if white decided to play h3, there is this very surprising move, queen to d4. This knight can be taken, and it's also attacking the queen. So there is a big issue, because the knight on f3 is defending against this queen h7, queen h2 checkmate idea. So if knight takes on d4, then comes queen h2 checkmate. I hope you enjoyed the traps and the video, and feel free to like it. If you want to see more of such videos, then subscribe to the channel. See you!